West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
So here are the details of that new reporting on Trump and nuclear secrets. Former President Donald Trump reportedly shared classified information about American nuclear submarines and their capabilities.
Oh my God. Some of the most protected secrets.
With an Australian businessman who then allegedly shared the information with more than a dozen foreign officials. Sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News. Meanwhile, two sources tell the New York Times that Trump's disclosures potentially endangered the U.S. nuclear fleet. The businessman, Anthony Pratt, is a member at Mar-a-Lago who reportedly discussed the submarines with Trump in April 2021. Great. According to the Times, the former president revealed at least two pieces of critical information about the U.S. submarines' tactical capabilities, including how many nuclear warheads the vessels carried and how close they could get to their Russian counterparts without being detected.
It's just staggering.
At what point are you a Russian agent?
It's just staggering. And at what point do people stop voting for somebody who is actively and aggressively helping the Russians,
you try to subvert this democracy,
or just by being a fool?
But you help Russia.
Sources tell ABC News that Pratt described Trump's remarks to at least 45 other people, including 6 journalists, 11 of his company's employees, 10 Australian officials, and 3 former Australian prime ministers. Why didn't you just go on the Joe Rogan show, dude? The potential disclosure was reported to Special Counsel Jack Smith's team. Enough. This is enough. Richard Haas, how damaging is this information outside the skiff?
Let's keep people a little bit of background here, Joe. You have levels of classification: confidential, secret, top secret. And then at the level of top secret, you have what are called compartments. And when I was in government, admittedly some time ago, you had more than 1,000 compartments. And the whole idea was to restrict access to the most sensitive information to those who literally had a need to know. Intelligence dealing with submarines is among the most protected information just because of their importance to American strategic deterrence, to stability more broadly. So the idea that this kind of information was widely shared, this is the kind of stuff, at a minimum, you strip people of their security clearances, and at worst, you prosecute them. So this is just irresponsibility on steroids. In addition, that it gives potentially the Russians all sorts of insights into capabilities on our part, vulnerabilities on their part. Imagine you're a friendly government, Australia in there, Israel, others. What does this do to your willingness to share sensitive information with us? I think this has a really chilling effect on our ability to work with our allies and partners. At the same time, it's a gift to our adversaries.
And Richard, you have to put this in context, do you not, of when this took place, which is April of 2021, which is when we now know those boxes of classified documents were stuffed in every corner of Mar-a-Lago. In other words, not a one-off,
Exactly.
a pattern.
Just what I was going to say. This is not an exception. This is the rule. And this is part of a pattern of irresponsibility, of negligence, and essentially law breaking. Again, and dealing with some of the most sensitive national security secrets that we own.
So, Richard, what's the fallout now today with this revelation in the national security community? Like, how does this scramble what the U.S. needs to know or protect and be aware of? What, Australia is an ally, but not everyone this guy spoke to may have been.
Well, again, I would expect foreign governments are looking at what they might have shared under the Trump presidency, trying to do a bit of a damage assessment. Yeah. Imagine if certain stuff was shared with us, read certain other countries, what might that mean? If I were in the Navy, I would be thinking about what difference does this make? What specifically, what was potentially shared if it reached the Russians? What would be the tactical or strategic consequences of that information? And I don't know. I don't have access to this information, Jonathan. Right. When I was in government, I had no need to know this sort of thing. Again, this is really restricted to people in the military, in the intelligence community, dealing with this type of military involvement. This is not, the average. No diplomat would have access to this. You didn't need to know it.
So, Sam, just to get on the record here, the Trump people say the story lacks proper context. Unclear what the context is under which you would talk about the capabilities of nuclear submarines with an Australian businessman on the patio at Mar-a-Lago.
Provide some context, please, Sam.
Yeah, the context is what was on the menu that night, what they're eating, the appetizers. Yeah, we need to know that. No, I can't get by Richard's point that if anyone else lower than Trump had done this, right? Just, imagine someone who had, unique access to this, a staffer, and what about spilling this? We would probably be looking at a prosecution, right? And this is just, the double standards, or the different standards, I should say, that Trump is held to are not just political, right? Like, I know a lot of Democrats out there saying, oh my God, if Joe Biden were to have done this, if Hillary Clinton were to have done this, we would never stop hearing about this. And that's probably true, right? We heard forever about email servers. But the real double standard is, Trump and people below him. And he does things that other people would be prosecuted or fired for. But he and his staff dismiss as saying, well, that lacks context, or, well, he's the president, he can do it, and so on and so forth. And, it's just, that's what's striking to me. And maybe Richard could elaborate on that. Like, what would actually happen if a staffer, was caught revealing these types of secrets? Like, how would that be handled internally and by prosecutors?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, in the short run, you'd lose all access to any classified information. You'd probably lose access to your computer and your job. At best, you'd be on administrative leave. An investigation would be begun by the security services. At some point, it would be handed over to the Justice Department. And we've seen this. This is what happens to people who are either reckless with classified information, and in some cases that actively handed it over to others. This is not a gray area. This is pretty black or white.
Yeah, it's pretty black and white. And you look back again and look at officials who have done so far less. Look at General Petraeus. Which, of course, the great irony here, Willie, is General Petraeus. One of the reasons Donald Trump said that he didn't select General Petraeus as Secretary of State is because he had classified information on his laptop. Nothing like this, nothing like nuclear secrets. And that he just couldn't let him be Secretary of State because it was so offensive to the other generals who were working with him. You look at Sandy Berger. Again, nothing close to nuclear secrets or nuclear war plans. You look at Director Deutsch of the CIA. These are all people who took things that Richard, will tell you, well below nuclear secrets, because nuclear secrets are some of the most protected secrets. You think about, let's say that General Mattis had leaked information or blabbed information about war plans, nuclear secrets, or nuclear subs. He would have been prosecuted. He probably would have spent time in jail. And that's what's so irritating about Republicans talking about double standards. Nobody has lived by a double standard like that and been given a wider berth than Donald Trump. And here's yet another example of it. This would send any of those people straight to jail.
Yes. Yeah, and it has sent people to jail for much less. And it is this bigger idea, as you say, of grading Donald Trump on a curve. Why does he get a pass on this stuff when no one else would? Why do Republicans go, oh, yeah, he said he thinks that General Milley should be executed. That's just him popping off. It's Donald being Donald. They've moved the window so far that they excuse almost everything. And there's an important point to make here, that this isn't just a fascinating story or a curiosity. This information, according to the New York Times and ABC News, intersects with Jack Smith, the special counsel's investigation, which may now call Anthony Pratt, this Australian businessman, as a witness in the documents case against Donald Trump, displaying further how cavalier he was with classified information around Mar-a-Lago.
It is Friday, the 6th of October of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Oh my. So how is your Friday going? It's seems like the internet has been lagging a bit, and I made all of the usual checks, meaning dumping cash and doing things to speed up the old systems on all of them, and it seems all of them are lagging regardless. So who knows what that's about? We can have our conspiratorial speculations, and we do. So, I hope it's not because we're all now zombies from the national alert, because those of us who have been vaccinated are supposed to be turned into zombies, apparently. All right. Well, if we are, do we start eating their brains? Can we? Or will we just bypass them because eating their brains really doesn't, there's nothing there. There's no brains to eat. Okay. Maybe that's their survival technique. Get rid of my brain. All right. Well, what else? We had quite a busy morning running around doing various things here at the mothership for our real life type of life. And it didn't have anything, fortunately, to do with my mom, my elderly mom, but more with the dogs. They've decided that they need attention and food when it's still dark outside. Don't they have any kind of circadian clock like the rest of us mammals? Jeez, what are they, birds? Birds are chirping before the light comes up. At least the night chirpers. Oh, yeah. So, and then I realized, oh my God, I got to get in front of the microphone. And here I am. But, yeah. So, Trump's, what was he selling? You could say that he sold those secrets to the Australian billionaire by dint of the fact that the guy had to pay an enormous membership fee. Mm-hmm. And how much did he write checks for Donnie's campaign funds? Yeah. Well, he has been interviewed by Jack Smith. He is not, he being Pratt, the Australian container magnate. I would say that Jack Smith has Pratt boxed in. No pun intended. Oh, yes, the pun was intended completely. Whenever anybody says no pun intended, they meant to intend the pun. A little bit of wisdom there. Jeez. Anyway, Pratt is boxed in because he is also in arrears in terms of receiving top secret material. And just because he's a billionaire, foreign national with an ally does not mean that he is exempt from prosecution. So I'm sure that Jack Smith told him that because they're required to. This isn't like Putin's Russia, where they just make up shit as they go along. Oh, yeah, we got this right here, codified right here. Oh, yeah. And you look into it and it goes, yeah, well, maybe Catherine the Great might have done this once or twice or 1,000 times. But, you know, this is the 21st century. Back to the story at hand. So Pratt got the screws turned on him, and he's now divulged how many people that he told these secrets to. Okay. Now there was a question posed on social media about where the Secret Service has been in all of this, and that is a good question. Because ostensibly people believe that if the Secret Service sees a crime being committed, that they're supposed to tell somebody. Well, we're talking about a crew who deleted every single text message, DM, etc. on January 6th and in the hours and the day after. Every single one. Oops, we made a mistake. We were doing an upgrade on our system, and somehow all of just these got deleted. Darn it. A crew who multiple Biden dogs a bit, because these dogs know who the bad guys are. You see these dogs around anybody else, and they're like lap dogs. Like licking people's faces, wanting to get in their laps. Oh, I love you, doing the little, curved hunch thing with the tail wag. Certain Secret Service agents would come by, and those dogs were on guard. Bristled hair up on their haunches. The familiar snarl. Because they know who the bad guys are. Where was the Secret Service in this? I think that maybe they signed loyalty oaths not to the Constitution of the United States, but in this instance to one Donald Trump. And he also made him sign NDAs for good measure, like that's supposed to work. So I'd like Jack Smith to get around to but those emails and DMs and text messages that the Secret Service deleted. Yes, those emails. All right. Okay, well, why don't we give you a rundown on what we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin on this fine Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Well, on the rest of the menu, after we went through that whole diatribe about Trump and, the container magnet making boxes. Yeah, lacks proper context. Sure. Well, on the rest of the menu, battleground state Republicans are refusing donations from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, wonder why. Well, we know why. Oklahoma has executed more people per capita than any other state in the U.S., actually since the federal death penalty thing was lifted back in 1976. Well, now some Republican lawmakers want to impose a moratorium until more safeguards can be put in place. Must be pretty bad. And the U.S. government has agreed to help restore a sacred Native American site on the slopes of Oregon's Mount Hood that was destroyed by highway construction. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where developed countries pledged $9.3 billion at a conference held in the German city of Bonn to help poor nations tackle climate change. And a special unit of German police and customs officials raided several properties of an EU-sanctioned Russian national in the southern state of Bavaria. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page to the left from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. We need the help. Please. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, Tumblr, Instagram, where else? Oh, Facebook, of course. And you can find me either as simply Justice Putnam or at Justice Putnam, as the case may be. And I post those show notes and links diaries on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime. And that's where you can find the actual reportage. And I suggest you do. So follow me on my social media feeds and you'll be able to find those links very quickly. Yes, indeed. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. You just can't find them on Stitcher. All right. Got all that out of the way. Let's dive into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it is out of Raw Story by their longtime journalist Matthew Chapman. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is contributing money to fellow House Republicans, but some of those facing tougher elections don't want to be backed by her, reported by Business Insider. According to the report, Greene, a far-right lawmaker infamous for previously spreading QAnon conspiracy theories and extreme anti-LGBTQ beliefs, contributed $2,000 each to 18 Republicans. However, two of them, Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin and Michelle Steele of California, never had the contribution show up in their reports. Van Orden's office told Business Insider that the congressman chose not to accept the contribution, while Steele's office said that her campaign lost the check due to a staffing error. Of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Oklahoma has executed more people per capita than any other state in the U.S. since the death penalty resumed nationwide after 1976. But some lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, yesterday, Thursday, were considering trying to impose a moratorium until more safeguards can be put in place. Representative Kevin McDougal, a supporter of the death penalty and a Republican, of course, said he is increasingly concerned about the possibility of an innocent person being put to death and requested a study on a possible moratorium before the House Judiciary Criminal Committee. McDougal from Broken Arrow in northeast Oklahoma has been a supporter of death row inmate Richard Glossip, who has long maintained his innocence and whose execution has been temporarily blocked by the U.S. Supreme Court. McDougal said he has the support of several fellow Republicans to impose a moratorium, but he acknowledged getting such a measure through the GOP-led legislature would be extremely difficult. Oklahoma residents in 2016, by a nearly 2-to-1 margin, voted to enshrine the death penalty in the state's constitution, and recent polling suggests the ultimate punishment remains popular with the voters. Of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The U.S. government has agreed to help restore a sacred Native American site on the slopes of Oregon's Mount Hood that was destroyed by highway construction, capping more than 15 years of legal battles that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In a settlement filed with the High Court yesterday, Thursday, the U.S. Department of Transportation and other federal agencies agreed to replant trees and aid in efforts to rebuild an altar at a site along U.S. Highway 26 that tribe said had been used for religious purposes since time immemorial. Members of the Confederated Tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde said a 2008 project to add a turn lane on the highway destroyed an area known as the Place of Big Trees, which was home to a burial ground, a historic campground, medicinal plants, old-growth Douglas firs, and a stone altar. Carol Logan, an elder and member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, who was a plaintiff in the case, said she hopes the settlement would prevent the destruction of similar sites in the future. The defendants included the Department of Transportation and its Federal Highway Administration Division, the Department of the Interior and its Bureau of Land Management, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. The Federal Highway Administration and the Department of Interior declined to comment on the settlement. In court documents dating back to 2008, when the suit was filed, Logan and Wilbur Slockish, who is a hereditary chief of the Confederated Tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation, said they visited the site for decades to pray, gather sacred plants, and pay respects to their ancestors until it was demolished. They accused the agencies involved of violating, among other things, their religious freedom and the National Historic Preservation Act, which requires tribal consultation when a federal project may affect places that are on tribal lands or of cultural or historic significance to a tribe. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com. Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, she's back. The Nun 2 is a straightforward sequel to 2018's The Nun. Set in the same universe as The Conjuring, Tassia Farmiga reprises her role as the demon-fighting Sister Irene. Set 5 years after the events of the first movie, Sister Irene learns that the demon nun was not destroyed, but has changed locales. Now she's wreaking havoc upon a French boarding school, and it appears that no one can stop the mayhem except her. Setting off to France to battle the demon, Sister Irene is joined by a plucky American novice nun, Deborah, played nicely by Euphoria's Storm Reed. Reed proves to be a welcome addition to the franchise, and indeed the best parts of the movies are the scenes with her and Farmiga. The pair have great chemistry and do well with the material they are given. However, even they can't compensate for the film's greatest flaw, which is that despite being a horror movie, it has some extended slow stretches. There are also a few plot threads, one of which involves school bullying that could have proved interesting had they been developed. Though there are some suitably gruesome deaths, this is one of the few horror movies in recent memory where a higher body count might have actually helped. Still, The Nun 2 is fine Halloween fare. Despite the less than great CGI on the demon, the production is pretty good and there are a few solid jump tricks. Add to that the aforementioned performances by Farmiga and Reed, and The Nun 2 isn't that bad. Like all the films in the Conjuring world, the goal of this second prequel isn't high art. Given some of the other franchise horror out there, this one holds its own, though you might be able to hold out for cable play in 6 months. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and beat us back on our channel on YouTube.
For Science Quickly, I'm Gary Sticks. Dreams may say something about the psyche, but they also say something about disease states. Dreams may even be something we can take some control over. To find out about all this, Scientific American got in touch with sleep expert Isabelle Arnulf, who is head of the Sleep Disorders Clinic at Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. During her career, Arnulf, who is also a professor of neurology at Sorbonne University in France, has researched a broad range of sleep conditions: sleepwalking, rapid eye movement, sleep behavior disorder, lucid dreaming, sleep in Parkinson's disease, and hypersomnia being excessive daytime sleepiness. Professor Arnulf is with us now to talk about sleep and dreams. Hello, Professor Arnulf. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you.
So REM sleep behavior disorder has been a real focus of your research. Can you tell us what that is and how you found that it interacts with dreams, and also how it might help us to better understand dreams?
So REM sleep behavior disorders correspond to people having some violent behaviors during sleep, including boxing, kicking, shouting. This is the most common kind of dream behavior we see. And this is a disorder that should be treated because people are injuring themselves or their loved one. Most of them are older than 50 years old, and they can go up to 80. So it's not young people. And it has been discovered in the last 15 years that these behaviors, when they occurred in elderly, is a strong prodroma of Parkinson's disease and related disorder. So we started to do a lot of cohort of patients to follow them over time and looked whether they would develop Parkinson's disease or not. This is the main research direction presently. But in addition to that was to use these behaviors as a window onto the dream process. Because if you think about it, during this process of waking up and remembering your dream, you lose a lot of information. In contrast, if you look at people during REM sleep behavior disorder, you see the dream in action. At the time it's happening, people speak exactly like they would speak during wakefulness. They behave like they would do during wakefulness. It's a narrow window, but it's a very, very proficient window onto dreams.
Is there certain content of these dreams? And my understanding is that in some of the neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's that you just mentioned, there are certain themes, there's certain types of dreams that they have. Can you talk about them?
The most recurrent themes of these dreams are aggression. They are mostly aggressed by animals or by other humans, or it's their loved one who are aggressed and they fight back to protect their loved one or to protect themselves. We see that in 80% of the dreams, but 20% of them are quite normal.
Can this be used by clinicians for diagnosis?
If somebody is enacting dreams, shouting at night, having these dreams of being attacked, and enacting them in the bed in their 50s or 60s, yes, it can be really used in the diagnosis process. You must think about Parkinson's disease that is coming, but the enacting part is the most important because all people can have nightmares, but enacting them is a key point that is caused by the beginning of Parkinson's disease.
Another area you study has to do with lucid dreams. Can you tell us what lucid dreams are and how they might provide a better understanding of dream states, and how they can be used in sleep medicine?
Lucid dreams is being aware of dreaming while you are still dreaming, without awakenings. Sometimes you realize you're dreaming and it wakes you up, but lucid dreamer can remain asleep. And as soon as they realize that they are dreaming, many of them can act or change some part of their dreams. Most of them try, for example, to fly. And you can also change your dream to make them more agreeable, avoid enemies, or making nice travel over the world, have sex with great stars. So it's a condition that occurs in the normal population. It's more frequent in children than in adults. And this ability to change your dreams is very useful when you have nightmares. If you can realize that it's a bad dream or a nightmare and change it, it will make your nightmare disappear. It's something we have developed with patients with narcolepsy, which is another disorder where people are sleepy all the time. And they used it a lot to change their nightmare to make them more agreeable dream.
So you communicate with the self-aware patient and try to get them to take certain actions? Is that what you're saying?
Until our recent work on lucid dreaming, it was thought that you could not communicate with somebody asleep and dreaming, but we were able to do that in a series of patients. We were able to ask them some questions where they were asleep, and they were able to answer, not with their mouth, but with some signs on their body, like frowning or smiling. So, because lucid dreamers, in addition to changing their dreams, they can be able to also send signals or codes to the investigators. And in this case, they are just great subject for helping us about research in dreams. And lucid dreaming is also scientific tools to explore what happens during our dreams. For example, it was possible to know if time was the same during our dreams and during reality, using some signals sensed by the lucid dreamers, like counting from 0 to 10, during dreams and doing the same during wakefulness. And it was shown that it was the same duration. And we used it more recently to ask our lucid dreamers to send us codes about the emotion they were feeling in their dreams. And what we found is that emotions are going extremely fast during lucid REM sleep, and they switch very rapidly from smiling to crying, as if it was one of the functional dreams to regulate emotion.
Does it also have any kind of clinical use in helping patients?
Yes, it has some clinical use, but you must be a lucid dreamer, which is something, if you're not spontaneously a lucid dreamer, it may be difficult to acquire. You need 3 to 6 months of training to get to proficient lucid dreamers. But there are some people trying to develop some other techniques to accelerate the ability to become aware that you are dreaming when you are dreaming.
What are you most excited about in your research going forward?
The most exciting thing, I think, is lucid dreaming. It's such a potent way to answer a lot of questions we had about dreams for a long time. And because I found that these patients with narcolepsy were proficient lucid dreamers doing naps during daytime, we have built a lot of experiment around these ideas, and it worked very well to answer all the questions we had about dreams. So it's coming one paper after the other because it takes time to publish. But I'm surprised by how efficacious this model is to understand dreaming.
This is really fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Science Quickly is produced by Tulika Bose, Jeff Delvicio, Kelso Harper, and Karine Leung. Our show's music was composed by Dominic Smith. Please consider supporting independent journalism like this. Become a Scientific American subscriber today, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify. For Science Quickly, I'm Gary Sticks.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow says me from bradblog.com. Join me for the Bradcast, now every night, right here on Netroots Radio. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the headlines, the pages of bradblog.com, and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out liars, frauds, and phonies, and even give kudos to the good guys, if we can find any. News and snark you won't hear anywhere else. Plus politics, elections, election reform, MSM failure, global warming denialism, and everything else. Join me for the Bradcast, now 5 nights a week, right here on Netroots Radio. Progressive talk for the rest of us.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Get your banned books here. Get your banned books.
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
In the small western Massachusetts city of Northampton, of the 21,000 books donated to the September 2023 League of Women Voters book sale, more than 1,000 titles shared, as the local newspaper put it, quote, the distinction of at some point having been banned or challenged in libraries and school districts across America. Books like To Kill a Mockingbird, The Hunger Games, A Farewell to Arms, The Sun Also Rises, Charlotte's Web, Where's Waldo, and the Harry Potter series, which may strike you as just plain goofy. But sadly, there's nothing funny here. Censorship across this country is deadly serious. The Florida Department of Education has announced the recent removal of over 300 titles, and Texas school districts have banned more than 800 books. Books that deal with gender identity, LGBTQ themes, and race are the ones most targeted by censors. To bring its display of banned books up to date, the League of Women Voters purchased the recently targeted Maya Kababi's Genderqueer and George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue. One irony here, the book sale raises money for the League of Women Voters and its work protecting the right to vote, another fundamental right under attack in the United States right now.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1993. That was the day that President Bill Clinton signed into law reforms to the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act was passed in 1939. It limited the political activity of federal employees. The act was passed due to accusations of alleged political cronyism by Democrats on New Deal projects. Half a century later, Congress loosened the restrictions. In his speech before signing the reform, President Clinton explained the changes, saying, quote, the Federal Employees Political Activities Act, which I am about to sign, will permit federal employees and postal workers on their own time to manage campaigns, raise funds, and hold positions within political parties. Still, there will be some reasonable restrictions. They wouldn't be able to run for partisan political office themselves, for example. President Clinton described the importance of the changes, saying, quote, we've been supporting democracy throughout the world, but here in our own country, millions of our own citizens have been denied one of the most basic democratic rights, the right to participate in the political process. He ended his remarks by saying, quote, I look forward to the infusion and federal and postal employee energy, expertise, and dedication into our political system that this bill makes possible. Today, under the regulations of the Act, most employees can assist in voter registration drives, attend fundraisers, contribute money, and distribute campaign literature. They can even run for office in nonpartisan elections. They cannot, however, use their jobs to influence elections or engage in political activity while on the clock. today there remains a balancing act between protecting the free speech of federal employees and keeping the government politically neutral. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs around 90 or so. Plentiful sunshine throughout the day, winds light and variable. Clear skies overnight with lows in the mid-50s. Winds will remain light and variable. And then mainly sunny tomorrow with highs once again near 90. Winds light and variable. And then about the same type of temperature on Sunday later on in the day. Looks like we have a sizable amount of water from the sky dumping later on in the afternoon, beginning on Sunday and continuing dumping almost 1.5 to 2 inches until Tuesday. So we'll see. Might even go into Wednesday. Well, we're looking forward to it. And let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay, ragweed pollen is rated high here in the little village of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 17 parts per million. Oh, and that daytime UV index is in the moderate range, but it has ticked down one more level to level 3. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.09 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 95%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 70 degrees and fair. Paris is 71 and sunny. Rome is 80 degrees and sunny. Kabul is 60 and clear. Kyiv is 56 and fair. Hong Kong is 75 degrees with light rain. Tokyo is 68 and partly cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 48 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 70 degrees and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 60 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York, New York is 70 degrees Fahrenheit with light rain. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Developed countries pledged $9.3 billion to help poor nations tackle climate change at a conference held in the German city of Bonn yesterday, Thursday. However, non-governmental groups criticized the outcome, saying the funds fall short of what is needed to tackle climate change. The pledges will help replenish the South Korea-based Green Climate Fund, established in 2010 as a financing vehicle for developing countries. It's the largest such fund aimed at providing money to help poorer nations in reducing their emissions, coping with impacts of climate change, and boosting their transitions to clean energy. The pledged money at the conference in Bonn will be used to finance projects in developing and emerging nations between 2024 and 2027. The German government alone pledged $2.1 billion. 25 countries came forward with fresh pledges, while 5 said they would announce theirs in the near future. 3/4 of contributing states increased their pledges compared to the previous donor conference in 2019, including Germany, Austria, and France. Denmark, Ireland, and Liechtenstein doubled their pledges. There was no mention of pledges from the United States. The office of the U.S. climate envoy John Kerry was not immediately available for comment. A U.S. administration official later said that Washington is steadfastly committed to President Joe Biden's pledge to increase U.S. climate finance to help developing countries tackle the urgent threat of climate change, but is unfortunately not in a position to pledge money at the Bonn Donors Conference. The official added that the U.S. is looking forward to sharing its approach to the fund at a later stage. In April, Biden announced $1 billion in new climate finance for developing nations at a White House Visual Climate Summit. Civil society and NGOs criticized the commitments made on Thursday yesterday, saying they fall far short of what is needed to tackle the impact of climate change on vulnerable communities in those developing nations. The issue of financial support to poorer nations will play a major role during the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference, COP28, starting in Dubai at the end of November. Sultan Al-Jaber, president-designate of the COP28, told the AP in a statement that the current level of replenishment is neither ambitious nor adequate to meet the challenge the world faces. We must go further in our support for the most vulnerable who are adversely impacted by escalating climate impacts. German Minister for Economic Development Svenja Schulz, who hosted the Bonn conference, called on more nations to contribute their fair share to the financial effort. Representatives from 40 countries attended the conference.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A special unit of police and customs officials have raided several properties of a Russian national in the southern state of Bavaria. The unidentified Russian is subject to sanctions and asset freezes by the European Union, German officials said. Several luxury cars have been confiscated from a villa on the Tegernsee Lake in Rotash-Ergern. In September of 2022, a special unit of about 250 police officers raided 24 properties across Germany linked to Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov, a close ally of Putin, on suspicion of money laundering and violations of EU sanctions. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on. And we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy from Appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.